Hey, everybody. On today's Locked On Bama, of course, we're going to keep talking about Will Conformby, who committed to Alabama yesterday. We will certainly talk about that. But one thing that I came across on Twitter, and I think this is so cool to talk about, this is what we're going to lead with. I want to let you know that's going to be Alabama's records against SEC teams all time. And there's just, I know this is something everybody can look up. And I know that it's a lot of people know our record versus Tennessee or record versus Auburn or whatever. But some of these numbers are kind of crazy, and there's some what ifs in here that I think we need to discuss. So we're going to talk about that today, and hopefully you enjoy it. On Bama, here we go.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. It's day two of Will Conformby in the fold, but let's talk about our records versus other SEC teams. I'm intrigued by this. Actually, you've got this information in front of you, and I bet you're going to surprise me with a couple of things.
You know, this is just something that came across Twitter for no reason whatsoever, and it was tweeted out by somebody who's like an SEC guy, not even an Alabama guy. I just find this fascinating. First of all, Alabama's dominance in the SEC is unquestioned. And we all knew this. And it's not us trying to be braggarts, although, I mean, okay, we're bragging a little bit. But listen to a few of these, Jimmy. And here's the other thing I want you to remember. What if Nick Saban didn't come to Alabama in 2007? That's where I think we would have had some losing records against some of these teams, I believe, if we hadn't gotten Nick Saban. Now, maybe let's pretend like Rich Rodriguez had still been the coach. I maintain that Rodriguez would have done okay at Alabama. He would have had a Gus Malzahn-ish type effect at Alabama, in my judgment. I don't think, again, not unbelievable, but some super moments, some great fantastic running quarterbacks. But in this league, I think he'd be about what Malzahn was, which was a one-time SEC winner. Maybe go to the SEC championship game a couple other times and lose, not winning national championships. And because now that sounds so foreign now that we've had Saban, right? But think about this. Our all-time record, what do you think our all-time record is against Georgia? Just throw this out
there. Tell me how many games we've played against them.
Okay, we're going to do some quick math here. So that'll be 72, Jimmy. 72 is the answer.
I think we've beaten them probably something like 45 times.
42 times.
42 times, less than I thought. Huh.
Well, we've tied them 4 times. So they've only beaten us 26. Yeah. But, okay, that's not the one that, like, shocks me. I am a little shocked we've played them that much.
Yeah, because it just seemed like in the old days we didn't play them very much at all, and we certainly don't play them very much, now. That is a little surprising, but I did know we would have a winning record against them. Frankly, what a lot of people don't know, Luke, is that prior to the Herschel Walker Georgia teams, prior to 1980, I think Georgia was very hit and miss as to whether they were going to be good at all. Hit and miss. Now, they had good teams, but hit and miss. They weren't dominant. They weren't a team prior to 1980 you'd expect to win a national championship. And I would say post-1980, they're almost the most annual disappointing team in the SEC, even before Mark Richt. Georgia was always good or even great, but they would find a way not to have a special season. It's really been under Richt and certainly Kirby that they are what they are today.
All right, here's one that's kind of fun to start with, and of course that's Auburn. We're 48-37-1 against Auburn. Okay, so we have
37-1. Okay, that's, man, so much of that is the Nick Saban era. I do know that Auburn is the team where, to my knowledge, we have the closest record in terms of, we're closer to 500 with them than anyone.
It was Tennessee. It's not Tennessee anymore.
No, this last 15-game win streak, I'm sure, has created some what will we call it? Separation.
Yeah.
But
here's a good question: if Nick Saban had not come to Alabama, And look, Nick Saban is 10-5 against Auburn. I think that's right. So 8, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 18, 20, 21. So yeah, he's 10-5 because he's lost. So we have gained 5 games on Auburn with Nick Saban, which again is kind of low. I mean, you got to give Auburn credit with that because they are far and away the closest competitor here. Even though other stats show that they're not even in Alabama's area code, but when it comes to head-to-head, it means a lot to them, and I give them credit for that. But if Nick Saban hadn't come to Alabama, and let's say everything else remains equal, we get a dude, a Rich Rodriguez-y type dude. Do we have a losing record to Auburn? I think maybe yes.
Wouldn't surprise me. And it's funny that you picked Rodriguez. I don't know how I feel about what would have happened if it was Rich Rod. I agree that it would have been not good, but not a disaster. We have to remember, for all the people that want to say everything prior to Nick was a disaster, even all the Mikes, they all had a 10-win season. Every one of them. Dubose won 10 games in the SEC. Mike Shula won 10 games. We were 10-0 on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Not Price.
Not Mike Price. Not Mike. And I brought that up to say Mike Price. In my opinion, Mike Price would have been the complete disaster. It would have been horrific recruiting-wise, and we would have played a style of football. 2 things. We'd have had no dudes, except we'd have had a handful of quarterbacks and receivers, but no dudes, and we would have played a style of football that would have gotten us murdered in this league.
There's no doubt. Look, I think Mike Price at Alabama would be kind of like what Larry Coker was at Miami, in the sense that he was really won the national championship his first year. Mike Price wouldn't have done that, but he would have been pretty good his first couple of years. Everybody would be like, oh my God, they're slinging all over the place. And this is crazy because it's Alabama. And it would have been even crazier because it's Alabama. But then after about a year and a half, it'd be like the Mike Leach thing going on at State. Now it's like, yeah, we can stop this because you don't have the dudes we have. You can run whatever offense you want to. It can be wide open. It can be really closed in, whatever you want. You don't have as many good players as I do. And in the end, that's what it comes down to. Now, a one-off, you'll be able to win occasionally. But long-term success, Mike Price would have stunk up the place. Jimmy, we need to go ahead and take a break. I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody right now about Built Bar. Look, I'm going to pull out a Built Bar. This is me very slyly and stealthily pulling out a Built Bar right now. Can you see it? I don't have my screen up. You see it?
I'll see it.
This one is a coconut. I wish I had it for lunch. I didn't. Because these things are absolutely delicious and nutritious and scrumptious. You absolutely can't beat them. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off that order. You can get chocolate mousse. You can get whipped cream. You can get cookies and cream crumble. All these different things. They got all these flavors, and some of them use these Built Puffs. They are fantastic. They got marshmallowy. It's like a protein-infused marshmallow. You can't beat it. You got to try the mud pie. That's like limited time offer. Go try it. All of them are covered in 100% real chocolate. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off that order. That's built.com, locked15 for 15% off that order. Let me make sure that I'm not missing something here. I was about to miss something. NBA draft night. I don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. One live NBA draft show is not enough for Locked On. The entire NBA channel is going live on NBA draft night. So if you have a favorite NBA team, make sure you subscribe now to the Locked On YouTube channel so you get notified when we go live on NBA draft night. That is Locked On, covering everything, the best that they can cover it right there.
You need to listen to that show, watch the NBA draft and eat Built Bars. That's one heck of a night there.
And bet on the picks through Bet Online.
Of course. And of course.
While you're working on your muffler.
Where's J.D. Davison and Keon Ellis? We predicting, we'll talk more about it in probably tomorrow's show, but
not first
mid
round.
To late second round?
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, maybe there was a chemistry thing. Maybe there was a team not jiving thing. Maybe it was whatever. Maybe both of them just really wanted to go. Tell you, man, I really wish at least one of them had come back because we got an open spot. we're not going to use apparently unless something really magical happens. So how much better would it be to have Keon Ellis come back? I mean, it'd been nice. So
I've talked about it before on the show, but in terms of J.D. Davison, now Keon was a senior, I get it, and Keon I think could have some success. How about this stat? I think this is right. I'm going to confirm this. 80% of second-round picks are out of the NBA within 5 years. 80%. But of that 20% that makes it, most of them are seniors. Senior second-round picks seem to have quite a bit of success. And guess who was one of those just a year ago? Herb Jones. But the J.D. Davison route, a freshman that's a second-round pick,
it's going to be tough, man.
The numbers aren't good.
Let's go back to this Alabama all-time record thing. Let's talk about Tennessee for a second, because right now Alabama is 58, 38, and 7. Now, one thing I should have done, I haven't done. One thing I should have done is gone through and seen these records. Do they include any forfeited wins, or do they not include those? I don't think they do include those.
I think those are, I bet those are straight up.
If I was a commissioner, the commissioner of college football, one of the first things I would ever do is say, I'm taking away all asterisks. This is stupid. Those things happened, and I understand what you're saying, but from henceforth, and this goes for everybody, because that way there's no confusion anymore. Like, did that game happen? The game happened. Most times, some of y'all were there. So
if I watched it happen, I don't need the NCAA later to tell me the game didn't take place.
I hate forfeiting the wins. And in fact, I would say the next thing we're going to do is, if we're going to have this set of rules, if you're caught breaking those rules and you cheat, I'm not taking away any of your wins, any of that stuff. I'm going to hit you in the pocketbook so hard you're going to wish you hadn't done that. That's going to be the punishment. The punishment, vacating wins, not being on TV, those aren't punishment. That's just not. So anyway, it's stupid. It screws up the record books is what it does. So let's talk about Tennessee. 58, 38, and 7. That includes a 15-game winning streak. So Tennessee was like right there.
Yeah, within 5 games before this. Within 5 games before this streak started.
And not only, see, here's the thing. It's a double whammy for Tennessee, because not only does Alabama get Saban and have all this success, because Alabama's getting better and having all this success, they're recruiting better in Tennessee. And so they're stealing guys that Tennessee normally would get. They're recruiting better in California, guys that Tennessee usually would go get, guys in North Carolina, Tennessee would usually go get, Georgia, wherever, and Huntsville even, where guys Tennessee would normally reach down and go get, like a Joey Kent. Well, so Alabama's success it has had the most adverse effect on Tennessee, I think, more so than any team in college football. Because, see, LSU has won a national championship and played for another, or actually won 2 national championships and played for another in Nick Saban's time. So, and I know 2 of those they played for are probably direct results of Nick Saban's Midas touch. But one of the other ones was just LSU. I mean, they've been able to tread water and stay there. Tennessee drowned. They did. They're dead. They're gone. They're buried. They're gone.
And recruiting is such a big part of that. There was a time younger Alabama fans are going to be like, this old man is totally making this stuff up. But there was a time, particularly in the 90s, when we would go head-to-head with Tennessee for prospects, and Tennessee would win most of the time. That literally happened throughout the 90s. And in the 80s, we would basically split players with them. We'd get half of them, they'd get half of them. In the 90s, they were pretty much whipping us for them most of the time. And I'm telling you, their 98 national championship team and those teams, those former teams from like let's say 95 through 2000, those teams looked a lot like Alabama's teams look today. There were dudes everywhere, and they were drafted high, and they won a lot of games. And their starting lineup was basically a who's who of what we've been following and recruiting. You know, I mean, just during that period of time, it was tough to beat Tennessee for players. And during the Saban time, not only has Alabama won every game on the field, Alabama's won every prospect off the field. The list of kids that have chosen Tennessee over Alabama over the last 15 years is very, very short. Even so short, it includes a guy like Henry To'o To'o, who would eventually choose Alabama over Tennessee when given a
While he
second
was at
chance.
Tennessee.
That's right. So
He said, I'm not even staying committed to the school I'm in right now. I'm at your school and I'm leaving.
right.
But some of these others, what do you think Alabama's record against Vandy is? This is, people are just.
Again, I need to know how many games I can probably get it kind of close.
It's going to be about 82.
70-12.
59-19 with 4 ties.
I'm surprised that it's 19 losses. I bet there was a period of time in the distant past that they must have reeled off a few in a row.
By the way,
maybe in the 50s.
I'm glad you said that. There was a text chain today, me and my brother and some of our Auburn friends who are super guys. They love to, every now and again, one of them sort of just peeks his head out to like cause commotion because he knows me and my brother will get fired up. And he peeked his head out and said, "Are y'all going to be watching the College World Series tonight?" And I was like, no. I mean, it'd be 50-50 if I'd watch it if Alabama was in it. I mean, I'm not a baseball guy. But I said, I guess I'm just going to have to go watch the replay of one of our many national championships to ease it. And so we went back and forth. And finally, one of them, as Auburn fans inevitably do when it comes to insulting Alabama people, they put up a GIF of Chris Davis's 109-yard kick six. And I said, you might as well put up a GIF of somebody wearing a leather helmet and playing in the Enron Bowl in 1931. That was 9 years ago, bro.
That was so 9 years ago.
I mean, look, get a little more up to date insult. You want to put a GIF on there of 2017 or 19? I respect that. You're going back to 13 for the kick six. Let's chill. So
I've been keeping up with the College World Series at least a little bit. I've watched some, not all of it. I watched maybe a little bit of most of the games, a little bit, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things. But tonight, as we record, Auburn plays Arkansas tonight in an elimination game. I think it might be the end of the road for Auburn. I think Arkansas might be a little much for them.
Arkansas's got too many dudes with mullets and mustaches. that equals good baseball team. You know how many times Kentucky's beaten us in their history? Don't ask how many times we played. I'm just asking
how many times has Kentucky beaten Alabama?
You can't be silent long because see, some of this
14.
is an audio podcast only.
14 times. No way.
They've only beaten us twice.
I know the 97 game. And
I remember. Hey, I paid money to watch that game on American television, and I wanted to throw up.
It was as depressing a loss, I think, as I've ever seen. But 97 was one. Was the other one in the 70s?
It couldn't have. I doubt the 70s. That was our most dominant time ever.
Well, that's probably true. But I think Kentucky won the league, believe it or not, 1 year in the 70s. I don't know if they beat Alabama. I think Jerry Claiborne was their coach, I think.
In the 70s he was?
I think this is right. This is like about 76. Jerry Claiborne, Kentucky Wildcats. I think they're pretty good. I think they either won the league or tied Alabama for the SEC championship. And I think that was the last time it ever happened.
They almost beat us. I think it was it 84, Jeff Dunn, Vince Sutton playing in like
87. No, 88.
It was 88. You're right. It was 88. I remember
the Murray Hill game.
Murray Hill had it, but we threw a touchdown to somebody very, very, maybe Steve Buskey or something. He's
friend of mine. He's actually a friend of mine now, though he wasn't then, though we were in school together. But Gene Newberry.
That's it.
He was a former quarterback that had moved to tight end, and he caught the game-winning pass from Vince Sutton to beat Kentucky. And Gene's a good friend of mine now. Great guy. And we spent some time actually talking about that. And
it was a moonraker of a fade pattern, if I remember right. And Gene Newberry sounds like somebody who, at one point in his life, played Eddie Haskell in a school play about Leave It to Beaver.
He might have. I know Gene, and he might have. Here's another interesting thing about Gene as it relates to today. This is crazy. He was. Again, we recruit a lot of highly recruited quarterbacks, and for whatever reason, they didn't pan out. But Newberry was basically a 5-star. He was one of the first early entry guys ever. He early entered college in January, like 2 decades before like the next guy did it. I mean, he did it a long time ago. I guess it was roughly 85. And Lou Holtz was the coach at Arkansas. And Gene was telling me that when Gene, who was from Arkansas, chose Alabama over home state Arkansas, there were editorials in the newspaper about, well, time to put Holtz out to pasture because he couldn't even sign Newberry. And that's kind of interesting. The quarterback didn't even work out for him. And it was a big blow for Holtz to lose him. But he was an early entry guy, literally 2 decades before it became common.
That's funny. In '88, you say the Murray Hill game. See, I went to the game in Knoxville that year. That was a funny time for Tennessee. Like, Tennessee was on like this unbelievably bad losing streak. And we beat them at their place in '88. And Murray Hill had a big game that game. And then they didn't lose again until 1989 rolls around and they play us in Birmingham. They were undefeated. And so were we, obviously, because we were undefeated going into Jordan-Hare that year. And that was the Saran-Stacy game. And they had Reggie Cobb and Chuck Webb. And Reggie Cobb had just been busted for drugs or something like that. And so they only had Chuck Webb. They had a backfield called Cobb Webb. I mean, that's just fantastic. That is really, really cool.
They were awesome players. You know, Reggie Cobb passed not too long ago, a few years ago, but not too long ago. Boy, those were two good SEC running backs.
Jimmy, let's go ahead and take a break. We're going to do one more quick segment. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit more recruiting. All right, buddy. Again, want to tell everybody about this NBA mock draft. This thing is really cool. The first picks of the Ultimate NBA mock draft have been made. Search now for Ultimate NBA mock draft and get over 50 insiders, the Audacity Sports experts, the draft experts have Locked On NBA Big Board, and the 5-episode Ultimate NBA mock draft is underway, y'all. Make Ultimate NBA mock draft your second listen today, right after this bad boy. So recruiting-wise, we get Wilkin Formby, the offensive lineman. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of people I say a lot of people. I think there are some folks out there, Alabama fans, who are a little bit down on Alabama recruiting just because they look at the rankings and see Alabama's like in the 20s right now. We only have 5 commits. All of them are top 100 guys. That's pretty awesome. But Jimmy, and that's where I really wanted to go with this, just talk about, like, let's build our fan base back up a little bit. Like, nobody be upset that we don't have Arch Manning or something right yet. First of all, we got a dude we really love in Eli Holstein. We might get Peter Woods here in a week or so. But this just came across. I mean, sometimes we break news. It's not breaking news to you. It's breaking news to us as it's happening right now while I'm recording. Tamarian Parker has been crystal balled by 3 people. 2, you want to guess it?
Florida.
No.
Alabama?
No.
Georgia?
No.
Auburn?
Penn State.
Wow. You know, they've been spending a lot of time in Alabama. They're favorites to get Dakari Nelson, who's a safety from Selma that I think is one of the most underrated kids in the state. But Tamarian Parker ending up at Penn State, that would be a wow. Man, wow.
I mean,
Good player.
Again, I would love to have him understand that perhaps Alabama is not chasing him as highly as some people would like or would normally in non-Saban years.
Yeah,
but
I'm not making excuses for Alabama because I love Tamarian Parker. I do. And, wow, boy, him going to Penn State would be something. But imagine this. Imagine Alabama wants to sign 4 defensive linemen. Imagine that's the number. And that's very realistic because, you know, there's only 3 that play. There's only 3 defensive linemen. You know, when we're in our regular, you know, lineup, there's 3 defensive linemen on the field. So signing 4 in one class is sort of a lot, right? What if those 4 are Peter Woods, James Smith, Kelby Collins, and Jordan Renaud from Texas? Yeah. Those 4 guys are all more highly rated than Parker. If you take Parker, which one of those 4 that I named are we dumping? So, you know, sometimes it's just hard to fit them all in. I think Tamarian Parker is a guy that signs with Alabama. He's a high priority for Alabama 90 out of 100 years. And if I'm wrong, 95 out of 100 years. It's just a crowded position group this season. But gosh, what a good player. I can't believe that he would leave the SEC. And if 3 crystal balls happen, let me just tell you how the industry works. It's based on solid information. That is not a coincidence.
Yeah, it's not a guy piggybacking off somebody else's crystal ball. That's not the case. All these guys have like 90% accuracy when it comes to these crystal balls. Nobody's got 100% because there'll always be a kid that changes their
Yeah,
mind.
more insider tip about those crystal balls. Whether at On3 we call it the RPM, and then 24/7 they call it crystal ball. Whatever they call whatever website. I would urge people that want to be intelligent connoisseurs of this information. Watch who is crystal ball. Who. Like for instance, I'll give him props. If Tim Watts crystal balls somebody to Alabama, pay a lot of attention to that. If some recruiting dude you've never heard of that's not from Alabama, that you're not familiar with, if he crystal balls some kid to Alabama, maybe don't pay as much attention to that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's kind of so don't just look at the crystal balls, look at who. But based on the story Luke is telling, boy, that sounds like something's going down.
And to end this particular podcast, that would mean the state of Alabama, let's assume he does commit to Penn State. In the top 15 players, or let's call it the top 20 players, the state of Alabama would have a dude commit to Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, several commit to Alabama, Penn State, Clemson, and Georgia. And you would assume Tony Mitchell to Texas A&M. A lot of people believe that. I mean, and that's not even 10 players. I mean, this year in the state is ridiculous. We've been talking about it this whole time. But Jimmy, that's going to do it for this podcast. When we do all this nostalgia talk, that's when we start rambling. But I like the rambling. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. Roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.